2018 was dubbed the Year of the Woman after a record-breaking number of women were elected to Congress. And going into the 2020 election, more women announced their candidacy for president than any point in history. What you may not realize, though, is that women have been campaigning for the highest office in the land for 150 years, even before they could vote themselves. Hillary Clinton's run in 2008 and 2016 are well documented, as is the 2012 run by Michelle Bachmann. But as we look to the future, let's meet a few other extraordinary women who've thrown their hats into the ring. The year is 1870, 50 years before the ratification of the 19th Amendment granting women the right to vote. In an era where women could not enter most stores or restaurants without an escort of a man, Victoria Woodhull was used to breaking gender norms. A former fortune teller from Ohio, Woodhull used connections with shipping tycoon Cornelius Vanderbilt to become the first female stockbroker on Wall Street and later the first female newspaper owner. In 1872, Woodhull accepted the nomination of the newly formed Equal Rights Party. In an apparent attempt to combine the women's suffrage movement with the civil rights movement, she nominated Frederick Douglass, a former slave turned prominent abolitionist, as her vice presidential candidate. Douglass was not informed of this choice and never acknowledged the nomination. Following a scandal unrelated to her presidential campaign, Woodhull spent Election Day in jail, and there is no record of her receiving any votes. Some scholars debate the legitimacy of Woodhull's run, as she would not have been old enough to be president until the following September. Despite a complicated legacy regarding her beliefs, you can't talk about women running for president without a nod to Victoria Woodhull. In 1940, Americans were headed back to the polls under the shadow of World War II. Hardly the time for jokes, right? Not according to Gracie Allen. The vaudevillian and comedian was famous for her zany act with husband George Burns and for the pair's publicity stunts. One such stunt was a campaign for president on the surprise party ticket. In order to boost ratings for the Burns and Allen show on CBS Radio, the pair went on a whistle-stop tour across the country.
Even big politicians don't know what to do. Gracie doesn't know either, but neither do you, so vote for Gracie.
Franklin Roosevelt went on to win his third of four presidential elections, but Allen did receive some write-in votes, and that's no joke. The election of 1972 is well known for President Richard Nixon's landslide victory over South Dakota Senator George McGovern, but it was one of McGovern's primary opponents that we want you to meet. Shirley Chisholm was a nursery school teacher before getting into politics to address racial and gender inequality. In 1968, she became the first African American woman to serve in the U.S. House of Representatives. And 4 years later, she became the first black candidate, male or female, to run for a major party's presidential nomination.
I am not the candidate of any political bosses or fat cats or special interests. I am the candidate of the people of America.
Her slogan was "Unbought and Unbossed," referring to her grassroots campaign, which relied heavily on the support of college students and her fearless nature. Unfortunately, discrimination severely hampered Chisholm's candidacy. She was initially barred from televised primary debates and only appeared on stage with her fellow candidates one time after filing a complaint with the FCC. Chisholm also faced a challenge getting on several state ballots. Still, Shirley Chisholm would go on to earn over 150 delegate votes at the contentious 1972 Democratic National Convention, about 10% of the total votes. So as you can see, while we may not yet have elected a woman to be president, that's hardly stopped them from trying for decades, even when they wouldn't have been able to cast a vote for themselves.